Hello and welcome to this IsleVote21 online meeting for the Isle of Wight County Council seat of Newchurch Havenstreet and Ashey. A brief word for the benefit of the public. IsleVote21 has been formed with the sole purpose of enhancing democracy by providing an unbiased platform for candidates. We have no affiliations or funding and no candidates are aware of what questions will be asked today, although a list of topics was distributed in advance to enable candidates to prepare. All 138 candidates in this year's election have been invited, either directly or via group and party leaders. The following candidates have been invited to this meeting: Claire Mosdell, Conservatives; Martin Ridgely, the Green Party. Martin has sent apologies for not being with us today. Stephen Reynolds, who is an independent candidate. Welcome, Stephen, you've joined us today. And Anna Beech from the Labour Party. So obviously in attendance, we just have Stephen Reynolds, who is a completely independent candidate standing in his own right for this election. Stephen, I'm going to ask you questions from our pool of questions, plus others that have been submitted by the public regarding island-wide issues. We haven't had any questions specifically regarding your locality, so that's how the questions are going to be working. And obviously I've informed you that there is a 2-minute limitation on answers. I'll raise my hand as we approach that cutoff, and I request that you finish up promptly afterwards. But before we commence with the questions, I would like to give you a couple of minutes to give a personal statement.
Yeah, basically, I'm standing completely independently, as I firmly believe that councils should be run independently, free from political, not necessarily interference, but guidance, due to the fact that obviously one manifesto doesn't fit everywhere. What might be right for one place certainly isn't right for another. And as we've seen, particularly on the island at the moment, the building of numerous projects to do with housing will impact massively on our infrastructure. So one of the main reasons that I want to stand is so as we can actually represent I would like to represent the electorate and make sure that the council that are in power next actually respect the views of what the general public would like to see happen to the Isle of Wight.
Okay, thank you very much. So now that we know why you're standing, I'm going to move on to the questions. And the first question is asking you to name a major problem that the island is facing and suggest a solution.
There's very many problems the island's actually facing, and some of them are actually really are major concerns. Initially, the continual building of housing estates, in particular on greenfield sites. Obviously, there's a difference between greenfield and green belt. Green belt really can't be built on, but greenfield sites never used to be able to be built on. But now the new planning regulations are allowing that to happen. The problem is, once that land is gone, it's lost forever. So in particular, for our area, the Branston Farm development was very cleverly put through as having a brewery and a bit of industrial. And then on the back end of that, 42 houses. Now, we all know everyone's got to have somewhere to live. However, the infrastructure on the island is pretty unique, the same as it is on any island. We don't have limited amounts of hectares and hectares of land to do these massive builds on. And we have one hospital, and anybody who's recently tried to get a hospital appointment or a doctor's appointment, regardless of COVID or not, the issue there is the same as with dentists. There just aren't enough positions to be filled. And very often people are kept waiting weeks after week, taking hours and hours to get through to switchboards that are designed to throw you off the system and make you persistently carry on. If you're ill, that's an awful thing to happen. Our road structure is not designed to take a huge amount of traffic. There's talk of a 1,500 development proposition at Parkhurst prisons, hence the new junction. The new junction hasn't even been tested yet with the volume of traffic. I'm waiting to see what will happen in the summer when we actually have a large volume of traffic. So for me, the key issue is I've got absolutely 4 people building a house in a bit of spare land, or doing an improvement, or small developments, which just increase very slightly the number.
You can finish this,
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So for me, I would like to see sustainability within the housing. And the problem is, we all say affordable housing. There is no such thing as affordable housing. There is affordability to be able to buy a house. And that affordability structure needs to change. So instead of you having to earn X amount of pounds before you even qualify, that you should be allowed to have a much more flexible type of mortgage system, whereby you can get on the property ladder without having to demonstrate that you've got a £35,000 income, which I think is about the minimum now required for even a basic mortgage. Okay.
Yeah, then thank you very much. And there'll probably be a question later on about housing, which if there's something to expand on, then you can do so in that as well. So the next question then, Stephen, is what relevant experience would you bring? What have you achieved in communities in the past?
I've been a Cowes town councillor for a while. And so obviously I've got the experience with how the council function. I'm not standing as a local councillor at the moment because I found it very frustrating in Cowes, to be quite honest. The money that is taken from us, where we don't have any choice about that, it's our council tax precinct, is spent, in my opinion, fairly frivolously on some projects that should be self-financing by the people wishing to acquire the money. And it seems to be a endemic in the councils that when a project is put forward, it's just automatically a yes vote from the majority of councillors. Myself and Wendy Waldrop were the only councillors that ever questioned any of this spending that went on in Cowes. Now, I'm not saying that some of the spending had to be done, because that's the whole reason of having a town council, is to improve the quality of the town. But I did question a few things. For instance, £2,500 for a vacuum cleaner for the bowls club, etc. I think minority groups that are minority groups should be self-funding and shouldn't rely on the benefit of everybody, because everybody doesn't get the benefit from the minority group. However, flowers in the town, signs in the town, all that sort of thing obviously benefits everybody. So that is expenditure that I'm fully behind.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question asks you, Stephen, how can residents become more confident and engaged with the council's decision-making processes? I'll repeat that. How can residents become more confident and engaged with the council's decision-making processes? Well,
we are becoming more and more and more online now, and there's no getting away from that fact. Myself, I'm not very computer literate. I can repair the things, but I can't operate them very well. So basically, most people now have access to the internet, and I firmly believe that more decision making should be taken with votes via the public on any major project, because it doesn't cost any pay. There's no paper money or anything to find. You just literally have to ask a question on the internet, and for the people concerned, they will then either say yay or nay. And obviously we can't have that as a total totalitarian way of operating, because sometimes for commercial reasons it's just not the way we can do things. But it would gauge very much how public opinion is felt. And one thing I found incredibly frustrating was the parking meters being pushed forward by the council for Gurnard Seafront. 3,500 residents objected to that project, and there's still objections and it's still ongoing. However, it only took the cabinet to make the decision that it was going to happen. I know for a fact the project was pushed forward by one officer, then backed by the cabinet. So 10 people had totally disregarded the views of 3,500 residents. That to me doesn't seem like a fair council.
Okay, thank you very much. So really to open it up to gauge people's views on topics and motions, etc., and to have less just controlled by the cabinet decision making. Thank you. Okay, so our next question here is a question that's been sent in from the public, and they ask what can be done to improve educational aspiration for residents of all ages.
Yes, very difficult. I certainly know that the inspectors that come round have said that the schools have not got to, and we've got no outstanding schools. Some might go, my son goes to Arrington Primary, and I've got to say, I've been pretty impressed, pretty pleased with the way he's learning there. It's very difficult to judge a school when it's not my profession. I'm not a professional person in the way that I can go around and say I can judge schools. The one thing I think that the council can do is to support them financially and make sure that they do have the equipment there that they need, and that, they're not running around trying to find bits of paper. That small time expenditure is catered for, and that obviously there is a supply of good quality teachers, and to try and attract good quality teachers. The island is a fantastic place to live and basically bring up a family. And I think whether you're a professional or not, if you can, come to the island, you're actually attracted to come to the island with incentives for the right people. It just makes sense that that would be the way to attract good quality staff. I think the monitoring of schools tends to be a bit boxed, if you don't mind me pardoning the way I say that. That means I think that everything is done to a certain level, certain standard, and if you don't quite come into that box, you don't get the tick. And I think the government have initiated this feelings, the way that the schools are, and as we all know, children develop at different ages, at different speeds, and there's too much of this trying to put people in boxes, because the way that the school system works is that the schools are judged on the boxes, and the boxes are being ticked. And I think we need a much more flexible approach to that, and an overall achievement, rather than just a box ticking exercise.
Oh, I had to take myself off mute. Thank you for that. Apologies if anyone can hear any background noise, by the way. There's some work going on in the background, which is why I've put myself onto mute, so hopefully you won't hear that. Right, the next question, Stephen, then, is how would you work to encourage less reliance on motor vehicles and develop more sustainable methods of transport? So how would you work to encourage less reliance on motor vehicles and develop more sustainable methods of transport?
Right, this is something actually I feel quite strongly about. Now, I don't know whether anybody realises, but the UK actually produce 1.1% of the world's pollution. 1.1%. China produced 28%. Now, I think we are not ready to make the jump yet to completely electric. Electricity has to be generated. We are burning fossil fuels a lot of the time to generate electricity to charge our cars. Our cars also are running on batteries using cobalt, which is and some precious metals. And I think we are being almost punished with tax and various penalties because we're a rich Western country for our 1.1%. So I really don't buy into this, and I believe now with modern cars, with modern catalytic converters, diesel particulate filters, which is something I do know about, that the emissions from the vehicles now are so small that the real polluters are large ships and aircraft, and nothing is done about that because it can't be done because we don't have the technology really to improve that. But it seems we always find a way to punish the motorist. So probably not the response that most councillors would give, but I'm trying to give an honest response based on my engineering background. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's what we're here for you to give you honest responses. Okay, the next question that I'm going to ask you then, as I mentioned, there's a question about housing here. So we've received many questions on housing, actually. There is a need for homes on the island to address a shortage of housing that matches the local situation, especially for those looking to rent. But an environmental cost comes with every new house built in terms of losing green space, the required infrastructure, and so on. How should the council, within the bounds of its powers, seek to create more homes for islanders whilst balancing the environmental costs of more building?
Okay, as I say, the housing side of things is something I'm really, really interested in sorting out. There is no simple answer because whatever happens, if you build, like you say, you have an environmental impact. More than the environmental impact is the fact that we do not have, and I can't see a way of increasing our infrastructure to the capacity of say another 10,000 people or 20,000 people without having a major impact on the hospitals. I mean, there would literally have to be a whole building program done to bring back our level of care that can be done. It's not just the hospitals, it's the social care. We do have an elderly population on the island. There's the jobs. Everybody says, great, let's build houses, let's provide homes. There's a lot of things. I mean, I feel that second homeowners should pay more council tax on their second home. They can afford the luxury of that, and I think it's only fair they contribute a little bit more. It also causes the problem, of course, of a false ceiling of not enough homes when actually there probably is. If you took away half of the private holiday homeowners, the affordability of buying a home is the crucial thing. I think that we're going to become a bit like China, where you have lifetime mortgages that is the only way that I can see that you can actually give people who are on a low income the opportunity to buy a property. Rents are now increasing again. This is due to the government short-sightedness of not allowing landlords to claim their interest back as a business. without going into a limited company. This again, something that I find very bizarre, that they're trying to discourage people from becoming landlords, apart from the very, very wealthy who've got multiple houses and can afford to become a limited company. And that, of course, increases rents, because the landlords have to now, instead of being able to claim their tax against their expenses, they can no longer do that. And that's one of the real problems now. But going back to basic houses, there just seems to be too much emphasis now on building without having the customers, because I believe at the moment there's 300 houses standing empty on the island. If I was in the council, I'd be asking the council to buy up, compulsory purchase some of the derelict properties, some of the properties that are doing our towns incredible damage just by sitting there empty and being an eyesore, and then being used for rental. You're on mute.
Had to happen. Sorry, I was saying that you've gone almost twice over your time limit there, which is why I was bringing you to a stop. So thank you for pointing that I was on mute rather than carrying on. But the next question is an entirely different topic, and this is about cross-Solent travel. We've had many, and if I can just ask you to try and keep, when I put my hand up to show that it's the 2 minutes, to try and wind it down soon after that as well. So we've had many questions pertaining to cross-Solent travel links, ferries, reliability and costs. How would you address existing concerns, and do you have a vision for improved connectivity? So I'll repeat that. No?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's fine. Again, I come from a slightly of a mariner background, as it were, and we have now entered 2021 with a very, very poor reliability of service. Red Funnel used to run any weather, fog, rain, snow, wind, guaranteed they would get you there. Now, fog closed as a harbour. I've never, ever heard of anything so ridiculous. With modern technology, you can very easily overcome the problems. The skipper didn't even know where the front of the boat was when he ran aground. That's how appalling that was. But there we go. That's very easily rectifiable. The first thing any skipper would do is look at the compass. But there, that to make things reliable, we need to, if you like, go back to more basics. A tunnel is a difficult solution. Half the island, I think, were for it, half against it. It would be a very difficult thing to say yay or nay on. I would like to see a proper referendum done on whether a tunnel is feasible or not. And I think at least it would have to be 60% of people for it, because so many people have come to the island because of that island feel. But it's getting to the point now where, because we're losing so many services to the mainland, that we really do need some kind of reliable connection, especially because obviously the helicopter can't fly in certain conditions, and so many procedures now are done on the mainland. I would like to see a hospital over here where we have got the facilities to do the procedures, and we bring the doctors over rather than fly sick patients to, because that again is a strange scenario when we've got an ICU unit and we've got the theatres. The equipment is basically not as expensive as one would imagine, and to move sick patients I always find a bit strange. Obviously some procedures where you are elective is a different matter, because you're then prepared to travel, and that could be anywhere in the country for any complicated procedure. But I'm talking particularly about the coronary care with having to go into a cath lab, which should be a gold standard within 2 hours of a diagnosis of a heart failure.
And you could wind it down again, Stephen.
Sorry. Yeah. Difficult one, but something that definitely needs addressing.
Okay, thank you. This is going to be the last question now for your closing statement, and this is very much about local issues. And this says, knowing your local community as you do, what local issue would you like to address that you know is of concern to residents?
Well, I briefly touched on the Branston farm. I think that's going to have a massive impact on Newchurch and the surrounding area. I'm not a great favour of the huge length of the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in Newchurch. I think it almost makes a mockery of it because people get frustrated. I think to try and attempt 20 mile an hour up the hill with a lorry or anything only adds to pollution and frustration. I would like to have seen at the top of the hill a 20 mile an hour zone through the narrow bit of Newchurch, but it extends right into some of the lanes and beyond. And that again, I think, was done with the benefit of winning votes and for the Branston farm development. So, but as goes Newchurch generally, it's a lovely place, great place to live. The roundabout at Raj's Premier Store, always a problem. I still can't foresee why that is one junction. I'm not a fan of traffic lights, but I do believe that is one junction where they really should be traffic lights, because I've witnessed many near collisions, and obviously there was a fatality on the crossing a while ago, and that is one area where I think there isn't a lot of scope to change things because of the structure of the ground there, and well, the layout with the shops and everything. But I do really think that that junction is probably one of the worst on the island.
Thank you for sharing those local issues that you have in mind. Okay, so that's the end of the questions, Stephen. Before we finish, I just want to give you the opportunity for a short closing statement and to reflect on this morning's process. Thank you.
Well, I hope those of you that find time to be able to watch this hopefully share some of my views. But remember, I'm here to represent you rather than my views. And, you know, anything that I say is my own personal view. And obviously people have different views. And I'm more than happy to represent views that even I don't particularly agree with personally, because that is the job of a councillor, to represent his electorate. And I really believe that this is not happening at the moment within the council. It's purely driven by the ability to generate finance. And there are so many solutions to the financial problems. For instance, the floating bridge. Why are the council spending hundreds of thousands of pounds to a private launch operator when they could buy a launch for less than 50 grand and operate it, and at a profit, because they could run it as a water taxi in the summer? Just one thing there with the floating bridge. Also, it's an engineering issue. It can be fixed. It's just nobody is being allowed to fix it. And that to me is, again, shocking. There are so many things that are major issues, stumbling blocks on this island, that need addressing, The motor racing cancelled. Again, it's a few days disruption for a few people, would bring in massive income. We've got Cows Week going ahead. Cows Week this year will have no fireworks. It will not be, I don't think, particularly friendly towards the general public. It's more of an event now for sailors, which is a very sad thing as far as I'm concerned. There are plenty of derelict sites around on the island which are dragging the towns down. I feel we definitely need 2 hours free parking, some incentives to get people back into the shopping centres. And how can you compete with a supermarket where you go in through the door, you have free parking, you have a trolley, you trundle out with your goods that are selling virtually everything now? We need to have a nice community feel again. The council should be pushing towards bringing that our towns, making them vibrant again. Cowes is a prime example of a vibrant town, and the reason it's vibrant is because there's a lot of events going on throughout the summer in Cowes, and people want to be there. Newport, when I was young, Sandown used to be the place to go, and it was heaving. We had nightclubs, we had bars, a fantastic beach. This year we've got stay at home holidays, and I think for the foreseeable future, staycations are going to be a much greater thing to happen due to the pandemic. Why not?
Sorry.
Yeah, why not? We have a fantastic beach in the summer, most of the time, great weather. We just need to monopolise on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you for taking the opportunity to share your views and your ideas with potential voters. Stephen Reynolds, an independent, completely independent candidate for Newchurch Havenstreet and Ashey. Just remains to say before we stop the recording to anyone who's watching, thank you, and please don't forget to vote.
Thank you.